The city was drenched in the muted glow of evening lights, a gentle drizzle reflecting off the wet streets. Inside his study, Michael sat in silence, the soft hum of the air conditioner filling the otherwise quiet room. He stared at the city below, yet his mind was miles away, trapped in memories and decisions that had defined the last decade of his life. At 43, he was not just a man of success. He was a man of hard-earned lessons, scars from choices he would never undo, and the quiet ache of solitude that came with ambition. Years ago, Michael had been like any other mid-level employee, dreaming of more than his bank account allowed. But life, in its peculiar way, presented an unexpected doorway. A small startup on the verge of collapse, begging for investment. Many would have passed, citing risk and uncertainty. But Michael felt a spark he couldn't ignore. That spark wasn't just ambition, it was an instinct, a whisper that perhaps he was destined for something far beyond ordinary. Investing in that startup became a turning point. The initial months were chaotic, filled with setbacks and sleepless nights. Michael balanced his regular job with this venture, often questioning his own judgment. Trust was scarce, even among those closest to him. His business partner at the time, someone he had known for years, hesitated to share crucial information. Rumors of mismanagement circulated, and competitors tried to exploit every minor error. It was a lesson in human nature. Success magnifies both loyalty and envy. One night, Michael remembered, he had stayed at the office until the early hours, poring over spreadsheets and projections. Every number carried weight. Every decision could either make or break them. And then came the first real sign of progress. A small contract, almost insignificant to the untrained eye, but monumental for Michael. It proved that vision paired with courage could bend reality, if only slightly. That small victory fueled him, but it also introduced him to the haunting reality that success is never solitary. People watch, judge, and sometimes conspire. By the time he reached 40, Michael's small stake had grown into a flourishing company. He had employees who depended on him, clients who trusted him, and a life that many dreamed of. Yet behind the polished boardrooms and financial achievements, a storm brewed. The very people he had relied upon, friends, family, colleagues, began questioning his choices. Doubts whispered through casual conversations and subtle gestures, eroding the simplicity of trust he had once taken for granted. It wasn't just professional challenges. His personal life bore the brunt of relentless ambition. Nights spent in strategy sessions meant missed family dinners, forgotten birthdays, and moments of silence when he returned home. The world saw Michael the billionaire entrepreneur, but few witnessed Michael the son, brother, and friend navigating a maze of human expectations. There were nights when he questioned the very cost of his dreams, wondering if the money, power, and recognition were worth the fragments of relationships he had left behind. Then there were moments of raw clarity, rare and piercing. One rainy afternoon, he found himself walking alone in a narrow street, recalling a conversation with his father years ago. "Michael," his father had said, "you'll chase stars, but remember, stars don't always light the path you expect. Some shine for you, some blind you." Those words resonated profoundly now, echoing the delicate balance between ambition and consequence. He realized that while vision could elevate him, it could also isolate him. Michael's life was a chessboard of calculated risks, personal sacrifices, and moments where trust teetered on a knife's edge. Partnerships that seemed solid dissolved under pressure. Promises were broken, some intentionally, others by circumstance. Each betrayal, minor or major, left its mark, shaping not just his business acumen, but his understanding of human nature. Michael learned that while strategies could be planned, human emotions were unpredictable, and true resilience came from navigating both. One particular incident remained vivid in his memory. His partner, whom he had trusted implicitly, had taken a decision that jeopardized a major contract. The fallout was messy, the media speculated, and clients questioned loyalty. Michael felt the sting not of financial loss, but of personal betrayal. The realization that even those closest could falter was a harsh awakening, teaching him to rely on his instincts as much as on people. Despite everything, Michael pressed on. Nights of solitude became his crucible. He spent hours thinking, not just about profits, but about the legacy he wanted to leave. He questioned motives, analyzed human behavior, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, grew into a leader who understood that success, without wisdom, is hollow. And yet, life had a way of reminding him of its fragile beauty. A message pinged on his phone, breaking the monotony of his reflection. It was from a mentor, a guide from his early days. "Michael, your story isn't just about wealth. It's about the lives you touch along the way, Don't forget who you are while building what you want. Those words struck a chord. In the hustle for success, he realized, it was easy to lose sight of the human connections that give life meaning. Michael leaned back, eyes wandering across his study. Walls adorned with awards, photographs capturing milestones, and memorabilia of hard-won victories surrounded him. Each object told a story, but none conveyed the silent triumphs. The courage to keep going when trust faltered, the discipline to act ethically under pressure, and the patience to endure loneliness in pursuit of vision. As midnight approached, he felt a quiet resolve settle within him. Challenges were inevitable, uncertainties unavoidable, but he had cultivated the strength to face both. The city lights glimmered through rain-streaked windows, reflecting a promise. Tomorrow would bring new decisions, new risks, new opportunities to touch lives, and new lessons to learn. And Michael, with all his flaws and wisdom, was ready. For the first time in years, he smiled, not at what he had achieved, but at what lay ahead. A journey of endless possibilities, of trust tested and reclaimed, and of a life that was not merely lived, but deeply understood. The morning after that reflective night, Michael woke up to the persistent hum of his phone notifications. The city outside was waking up too, cars honking in a distant rhythm, street vendors setting up their stalls, and the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifting through his apartment window. Yet inside, Michael felt a different kind of stir, anticipation mixed with unease. Today wasn't just another day at the office. It was a test of everything he had built and everything he believed in. Over the past few months, his company had faced mounting challenges. Investors were restless, competitors aggressive, and internal tensions quietly simmering. Michael knew that a single misstep could unravel years of hard work. Yet he also recognized a subtle truth. Fear and doubt were natural companions of anyone daring to reach higher. He sipped his coffee, savoring the bitter warmth, and allowed himself a moment of clarity. The path forward required not just strategy, but courage, and an unwavering sense of self. At the office, Michael's team was already immersed in activity. Screens flashed with data, phones rang incessantly, and assistants moved like clockwork around him. But Michael noticed the tension in their eyes, a quiet worry that their leader could sense even before it was spoken. Trust had always been the cornerstone of his relationships, yet now it seemed more fragile than ever. Employees whispered about contracts, promotions, and rumors of internal politics. Michael knew he couldn't control every narrative, but he could control his approach, and that's what he intended to do. By mid-morning, a critical meeting was scheduled with potential investors. Michael prepared meticulously, reviewing numbers, projections, and strategy points. He rehearsed responses to questions he knew were coming, yet remained flexible for the unpredictable. The meeting room felt colder than usual, not due to the air conditioning, but because of the weight of anticipation. Investors entered, handshakes exchanged, polite smiles masking curiosity, skepticism, and hidden agendas. Michael greeted each with composure, his mind calm despite the storm of stakes surrounding him. The discussion began. Numbers were scrutinized, strategies challenged, and assumptions questioned. One investor, a sharp-eyed woman in her late 40s, leaned forward and asked the question Michael had anticipated. "What guarantees do we have that this growth is sustainable? Your previous partner's decisions caused friction. How do we know history won't repeat itself?" The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they cut close to truths Michael had felt for months. He leaned back, gathering his thoughts, and replied, "Sustainability comes not from avoiding mistakes, but from learning from them, and building systems that endure. I cannot control every human error, but I can ensure that our processes, ethics, and dedication are unwavering." There was silence for a moment. Then, slowly, nods of understanding. Michael realized that transparency, even about past challenges, forged stronger trust than perfection ever could. People respected honesty, even if it revealed vulnerability. And today, that honesty was his most powerful tool. After the meeting, Michael retreated to his private office, exhausted, yet invigorated. The adrenaline from negotiation faded, leaving a lingering awareness. Leadership was not just about commanding results, but about navigating human nature. He thought about his earlier years, the small startup, the risks taken, the betrayals endured. Every experience had sculpted his resilience, yet he knew that the journey was far from over. Later that evening, as rain began to fall again, Michael found himself walking along a quiet street near his apartment. The rhythm of raindrops on pavement was soothing, a counterpoint to the whirlwind of business. And then, unexpectedly, his phone buzzed. A message from someone he hadn't heard from in years. It was Sarah, an old colleague who had left the company abruptly after a disagreement. Her message was simple. "Michael, we need to talk. There are things you need to know." A wave of apprehension hit him. Sarah had been a trusted advisor once, yet the circumstances of her departure had left unresolved tension and lingering questions. He paused under a streetlight, considering the implications. Should he meet her? Was this an opportunity for clarity, or a trap that could threaten the stability he had built? Michael decided to trust his instincts. He replied affirmatively, setting a time for the next morning. That night was restless. He replayed old memories, dissected conversations, and analyzed potential outcomes. Trust, he realized, was not just about others. It was about believing in his own judgment amidst uncertainty. The next day, Sarah arrived at the cafe they had agreed upon. She looked different, older, wearier, but still carrying the intensity that had once made her invaluable. They greeted cautiously, and after a few minutes of small talk, she spoke. "Michael, I discovered discrepancies in some of the company's financial channels. I didn't come forward earlier because I feared backlash, but now it's critical." Michael's heart raced. Discrepancies? Could this jeopardize everything? He listened intently as Sarah detailed the situation. Minor accounting irregularities, potentially manipulated by someone within the company, and hidden in layers of approvals. It was not catastrophic, but it was serious enough to demand immediate action. Rather than panic, Michael felt a strange sense of clarity. This was precisely the kind of challenge he had anticipated when building his empire. It wasn't about the threat itself, but how one responded. He assured Sarah that the matter would be addressed swiftly and discreetly, and that transparency would remain his priority. Their discussion lasted hours, analyzing every angle, assessing risks, and planning a strategy to protect both the company and its employees. By evening, Michael returned to his apartment, drained but resolute. He knew that leadership wasn't glamorous. It was heavy, demanding, and often isolating. But in these moments, amidst tension and uncertainty, he felt a deeper sense of purpose. Every challenge, every betrayal, every tense conversation, they were all part of the intricate tapestry of a life fully lived. As night fell, he reflected on the day. Rain lashed against the window, the city lights flickered through the mist, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Michael's phone buzzed again, messages from team members seeking guidance, reassurance, and clarity. He replied with careful words, each message carrying the weight of responsibility. Finally, alone, Michael allowed himself a moment of introspection. He realized that wealth and success were transient, but trust, integrity, and resilience defined legacy. The evening had tested his patience, judgment, and courage, and he had emerged not unscathed, but stronger. The journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more betrayals, more tests of character. Yet Michael, grounded in his experience and intuition, knew he could face whatever came next. For the first time in years, he felt a quiet certainty that he was not merely surviving the storm, but learning to navigate it with wisdom, strength, and unwavering resolve. The morning light crept slowly through the blinds, casting long stripes across Michael's office floor. The previous night's revelations still weighed heavily on him, but he refused to let uncertainty dominate his thoughts. With a deep breath, he reminded himself that clarity often came after confronting uncomfortable truths. Today wasn't just another day at work. It was the day to untangle the threads of trust, deception, and responsibility that had quietly entangled his company. Michael's phone buzzed incessantly, each notification a reminder of urgency. His assistant, Rachel, had already prepared a detailed report highlighting the potential discrepancies Sarah had uncovered. As he scanned the documents, he realized the complexity of the issue. Multiple layers of approval had masked minor manipulations, but even small irregularities could erode investor confidence if left unaddressed. He knew that action required precision, discretion, and speed. By mid-morning, he convened a private meeting with his senior management team. Faces that had once been familiar in casual confidence now reflected subtle anxiety. Michael observed each member carefully, sensing both loyalty and fear, ambition and caution. "We have a situation," he began, his voice calm but firm. "There are discrepancies in our financial channels. They're not catastrophic, but they're significant enough to demand immediate attention. We handle this wrong, and it could undermine everything we've built." Questions followed rapidly, some tentative, others blunt. Who was responsible? How long had it been going on? Was this sabotage, negligence, or miscommunication? Michael addressed each with measured responses. He emphasized the importance of evidence over assumption, analysis over impulse, and transparency over denial. In moments like these, leadership demanded more than intellect. It demanded empathy, insight, and the ability to see both the problem and the people behind it. After the meeting, Michael retreated to his private office, alone with his thoughts. His gaze fell on the city skyline, where towering glass buildings gleamed in the sun. In that reflection, he saw both the fragility and resilience of what he had built. Success, he realized, was not a guarantee of security. It was a continuous process of vigilance, adaptation, and decisive action. Mid-afternoon brought another layer of complexity. Sarah had discovered that some of the discrepancies were tied to an external consultant, someone Michael had trusted implicitly. The realization stung. Trust had always been the foundation of his network, and yet even the most reliable connections could falter. Michael understood that his instincts would be tested, to confront without alienating, to investigate without accusation, and to protect the company without compromising integrity. He summoned the consultant, a man named Leonard, to his office. Leonard arrived punctually, a well-dressed professional who exuded confidence but seemed uneasy under Michael's steady gaze. "Michael," he began, "I understand there are concerns. I assure you, everything I've done is above board." Michael listened carefully, noting not just the words, but the tone, the pauses, and the subtle hesitation. "Leonard," he said, his voice steady, "this isn't about accusations. It's about clarity. There are inconsistencies that need explanation. I need you to walk me through every detail, every transaction, every approval, every anomaly. We have to restore trust, not just with investors, but within the company itself." The conversation lasted over 2 hours, dissecting documents, retracing decisions, and examining assumptions. By the end, Leonard's initial confidence had waned, replaced by cautious cooperation. Michael realized that confrontation didn't require aggression. It required meticulous analysis, patience, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. Later, as the evening sun dipped below the horizon, Michael reflected on the day's events. Leadership was heavier than most people imagined. It wasn't about power or prestige. It was about bearing responsibility for decisions that affected countless lives. Employees, investors, partners, all depended on his judgment. And in that weight, there was clarity. Challenges revealed character, and adversity honed resilience. As night fell, Michael received a message from Rachel. All financial anomalies have been accounted for, and discrepancies traced. A detailed report is ready for tomorrow's board review. Relief mixed with fatigue. The problem wasn't fully resolved. The human element of trust still needed repair, but at least the path forward was clear. Before retiring for the night, Michael took a moment to reflect. The day had been intense, fraught with tension, and filled with complex decisions. Yet in the midst of it all, he felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Not because the crisis was over, but because he had faced it head-on. Because he had acted decisively, ethically, and thoughtfully. And because, despite uncertainty, he had chosen integrity over convenience, truth over ignorance. Michael sat back, allowing himself a rare moment of solitude. The city lights shimmered against the night sky, a reminder of both the challenges and possibilities that lay ahead. He knew tomorrow would bring new tests, new decisions, new pressures, new revelations. But he also knew one thing with certainty. He was ready to face them. Not just as a businessman, but as someone who had learned the profound weight of trust, the necessity of courage, and the enduring value of resilience. In the quiet of his office, Michael allowed himself to imagine the future. A future shaped not merely by success, but by the principles that had guided him through uncertainty. The journey was far from over. It never would be. Yet for the first time in years, he felt grounded, prepared, and capable of navigating whatever storms lay ahead. The night had grown deep, and the city below Michael's office sparkled with 1,000 lights, each representing countless lives and untold stories. Inside, Michael sat alone, the weight of the past days pressing heavily on his shoulders. The events that had unfolded were more than just financial anomalies or management crises. They were a test of character, of trust, of resilience. Reflecting on the turmoil, Michael thought about the people who depended on him. Employees who looked to him for guidance, investors who trusted his decisions, and colleagues whose confidence had been shaken by recent events. Leadership, he realized, was not a role defined by titles or wealth. It was defined by the courage to confront uncertainty, the patience to analyze complexity, and the empathy to navigate human emotions. As he reviewed the final report one more time, Michael couldn't help but notice patterns he hadn't seen before. Subtle indicators that pointed to miscommunication, oversight, and even unintentional negligence. No one was malicious, but in the fast-moving world of business, small errors could compound into crises. It was in moments like these that clarity of thought and decisiveness mattered the most. Morning arrived with a quiet calm. Michael prepared for the board meeting, ensuring every detail was accounted for. The room was filled with the familiar hum of anticipation as senior members and investors settled into their seats. Michael began with transparency, explaining the situation, the steps taken, and the lessons learned. He emphasized the importance of internal audits, proactive communication, and cultivating a culture where accountability wasn't feared, but valued. Questions came, some challenging, others seeking reassurance. Michael addressed each with unwavering composure, blending data with narrative, logic with empathy. By the end of the session, the room was not only reassured, but inspired. They had seen a leader confront uncertainty head-on, act ethically, and navigate complexity with intelligence and heart. Once the board meeting concluded, Michael returned to his office to a quiet, reflective afternoon. Emails, calls, and updates filled his time, but he took moments to step back and ponder the journey. He thought about the mistakes, the lessons, and the human elements intertwined in every business decision. It was never just about profit margins or market share. It was about people, relationships, and the trust that binds them. By evening, Michael decided to reach out personally to the team members who had been most affected. He spoke with Sarah, Leonard, and Rachel, not in the formal tone of a CEO, but with genuine concern and appreciation. He acknowledged their dedication, the stress they endured, and the challenges they faced. In those conversations, Michael realized that leadership was as much about human connection as it was about strategic decisions. The bonds of trust and respect created in these moments were the true pillars of any lasting organization. Later that night, Michael walked through the quiet streets of the city. The world seemed calm, yet he knew beneath the surface, opportunities, challenges, and uncertainties always existed. He reflected on his personal growth, understanding that every crisis carried within it a lesson, a chance to strengthen resilience, and an opportunity to redefine one's approach to leadership. He paused near a small park, observing a group of children playing, their laughter echoing against the walls of surrounding buildings. It reminded him of innocence, curiosity, and the human spirit's capacity for hope. It was this perspective, valuing people, nurturing trust, and learning continuously, that he knew would guide him through future challenges. As he returned to his office, Michael's phone buzzed with one last message. The final reconciliations are complete. The board's follow-up report will be shared tomorrow morning. A sense of relief washed over him. The immediate crisis was contained, the lessons were learned, and the path forward was clear. Yet he understood that vigilance, empathy, and decisiveness would always remain necessary companions in his journey. Before ending his day, Michael reflected on the long journey that had brought him here, the early challenges, the unexpected revelations, and the personal growth that accompanied each obstacle. He understood that wealth and success were hollow without integrity, trust, and human connection. And as he switched off the lights, he felt a quiet confidence that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready to face them, fortified by experience, guided by principles, and driven by resilience. In the final moments, Michael addressed his team through a brief message. Thank you for your dedication and trust. Together, we've navigated uncertainty, learned crucial lessons, and strengthened our foundation. Let's continue building, learning, and growing. And as a modern storyteller might remind his audience, if you found this journey insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There's much more to explore. The story doesn't end here.